Yeah, we're going to look at the psychology of high performance, whether that's high performance in business or whether it's in sports teams or individuals. We're going to look at it from 5 different stages really. We're going to talk first of all around behaviours and identifying the winning behaviours that your team needs to exhibit. We'll talk around a concept called the self-consistency theory, which is probably one of the most powerful elements of our psychology, of getting people to understand who they are at the best and then how they go about holding themselves to account for it. And this is where I think we can learn a lot from sport. The work I've been doing with a number of leading rugby league clubs, including the national team, has been getting them to hold each other to account for the behaviours that they've identified are the ones that will make them most successful. So we're going to talk about behaviours first of all. Then we're going to talk about what I think is a key contributor that makes a difference between good and great teams, which is very much around this emotional intelligence. And that really talks about how if you can start to control your emotions, you understand how that enables you to behave at your very best. So it almost underpins it. We'll talk about 4 key factors around emotional intelligence of high performers. They have this need to feel that they have a certain kind of belonging. I mean, if you think about it, even in individual sports, so I work with boxers, for example, the reason they have these entourages that they do is because it gives them the sense of belonging that we all need. Then we'll talk about the sense of safety, and this is an emotional safety, which is more around feeling safe to make mistakes and not feel that it's going to have a detrimental effect on their performance. We'll talk about the value that they offer and that they receive from their environment that gives them the sense of confidence they require. Then we'll talk about the control, and that's one of those key phrases in sports psychology. We're also about controlling the controllables and how important that is. Underpinning that, we'll talk about, on the third element, we'll talk about attitudes and the importance of attitude, like what is attitude and the importance of it for all high performers. And we'll make reference there to some work I did a number of years ago with the Royal Marines down in Lympstone in Devon, which draws on how they use it in their recruitment strategy and how anybody's team can adopt some of the same principles. We'll also talk about sort of the work of a famous psychiatrist, a guy called David Cantor, that talks about 4 different types of people that any team will have, and how, and this is from the perspective of coaches, you have to deal with them, and from individuals, thinking about which camp they frequently sit into. The 4th area that we'll talk about in the webcast is going to be around beliefs, and again talking about having that sense of belief is one of those key phrases, but we'll first of all identify what is a belief, and then how do we go about making sure that it is the right ones that are going to enable us to do it. A really good example of this is there's a lovely phrase that Ferguson uses at United, where he talks about, well, he's used it before, where he says, my Manchester United team never get beat. We might occasionally run out of time, but we never get beat. And we'll talk about how that's a good illustration of a really effective belief. The 5th area, then the final one, is going to be around conditioning and making sure that your overall environment is conducive to allow you to be able to go and behave and perform at the very best levels that you possibly can. A wide range of people, if you're talking about sportsmen in whatever capacity, or sports people in whatever capacity, you're talking about as an individual. Coaches can talk about how they can use some of these same elements in relation to the teams or individuals they're coaching. Leaders as well, so the business world, they do a lot of work in education, going into some of our country's worst performing schools. Do a lot of work as I run a consultancy, so I do a lot in public and private sector. And then I do a lot of work in sport, so I work on the England Rugby League team, I work with the Warrington Wolves, I work in football, and I work with boxing as well. The last area is I also run a charity in Manchester, it's an inner city boxing club. So again, we'll talk about, so anybody that works across any of those areas, I'm sure there'll be something that they can really tap into and find something of value to take away. Yeah, mentoring is absolutely integral to any great team. I mean, I work with coaches that are performing under huge pressure, and sometimes having a mentor, just somebody that is almost like a sounding board for them, is sometimes an invaluable role. That when they're under pressure, a lot of coaches are often expected to have the answers, and sometimes they need somebody just to go to and bounce ideas around, and in a safe environment, without feeling judged or without feeling that people are going to question their wisdom. So I play that role a lot with a lot of the coaches that I work with. I'll also play it sometimes as well with the individual players, where some players will seek me out to come and talk about issues that are affecting them, whether it's confidence, whether it's just looking for reassurance, that they might not necessarily want the teammates to know they're going through at the time. So mentoring is absolutely integral to anybody, and that's why I think the whole webcast idea and everything is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing, but I often find that it's the most successful people tend to be the most open-minded and most prepared to look for support and mentoring. You know, I often say this to young, talented sports people that often have a questionable attitude. I often say that it seems to be the case that they're the ones that are prepared to, the elite ones are the ones that are prepared to come with an open mind and are prepared to learn. In terms of the qualities of an effective mentor, I think being a good listener, being prepared to listen without judging, and just let people talk and come to the answers themselves is effective. Not being judgmental and having an open mind, and being prepared to challenge as well, having strength in your convictions that sometimes you do need to be prepared to challenge. I think they're some essential qualities for all effective mentors.